Hello, my name is Kwan Xiao. In this video, I'll be helping Clovis College Information Systems students complete their graphic design for the web project. I'll guide you step by step through GIMP as we work on Project 4. Please have the directions either printed out or open on your computer so you can follow along as I go through the steps. In this video, I'll show you how to retouch photos by removing blemishes, eliminating unwanted people or objects, adjusting colors, and replacing the sky. You then apply these techniques to your own photos or to stock images found online. So let's start by opening GIMP and the directions you can use. You can follow along. And I'm going to show you another way to start GIMP. And the other way to um, open GIMP is to start with the image that you want to work on. And so I kind of find this to be easier because the GIMP um, interface for finding files is not as well designed as I would like. So what I usually do is I find the image that I want to work with. So in this case, we'll be working on image 1 for project 4. So what I do is right click, and then from there I can, since this is a demonstration for a Windows computer, it's going to be different on a Mac. But on a Windows computer, you can select open with. And then from there you can select GIMP. Now, if you can't find GIMP, then you have to go to choose another app and then browse, choose an app on your PC. And then you would have to, I believe, uh, yeah, just it defaults to the right location, which is the program files. And then GIMP 3, it would be binary, and there you are. It's a little confusing which one to pick, but really they're all the same. So you can just stick with the first one here. But I don't need to do that since I've already um, taught Windows to offer GIMP as a app that I can open the image file with. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to be opening up project 4, sample image 1. And you want to go ahead and convert the RGB profile for an Adobe to GIMPs. And so what we'll be doing is we'll be removing blemishes and scars, whitening teeth, and then enhancing the eyes. Okay. So got this first part done. So what we want to do is, I see I've learned in previous projects is to add layers for any edits. So here we'll be adding layers for retouching so that in a way we're working non-destructively. So what that means is if we ever change our mind or the client changed their mind about what we've done, we can always go back to the original photo without having to reopen the image and restart. So let me show you what that means. So to do that, we just go ahead and duplicate the layer. Since we've done that, let's go ahead and rename the layers. Call the bottom layer original. And let's just call the top layer blemishes. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and focus on this person's left arm. And you notice there's some scars and some, I guess, some uneven tan on his left arm here. So let's go ahead and fix that. All right, so let's go ahead and cross that off first. So let's go ahead and select a healing brush, which you can do by hitting H on your keyboard, or you can just hit on this Band-Aid button, Band-Aid icon. Oh, there's just a spelling error there. It's supposed to be 35, so I'll definitely fix that. Um, let's go ahead and set the size to 35, which I've already done, and hold down the Control key on a Windows computer. If you're on a Mac, it would be the Command key. And then we want to click on a unblemish area, or another word for that, a reference area, to sample it. So what healing does is it picks the area that we're gonna use as a sample. So like I'm gonna pick the area beneath it. So I'm gonna focus on this little scar here, this round scar. And you notice when I hold Control and click, there's a circle there. So what that means is when I click over it, you notice it kind of moves with me. Okay? And you notice that scar's gone. The other technique that is good to kind of copies kind of like pick another area above it to kind of give it more like textural variation to the skin. So it's always good to click a reference area below and above the area that you're trying to fix. So let me go ahead and show you this scar here that's a little bit more prominent. So let me go ahead and zoom in a little bit more. And then once again, if you're using a mouse, just press down on a mouse wheel that allows you to pan the image. And then I'm just going to click and drag that. Okay. And then you notice it's a little bit uneven, so I'm just going to go ahead and reference the top now and then go from there. And feel free to kind of change the brush stroke directions as well. Oops, I don't like that. Yeah, there we go. You can also kind of click out. Okay, so yeah, that looks good. You can also fix this uneven tan line here. You notice I'm just clicking a lot of reference spots to kind of like give it some variation to kind of, yeah. So the tan line is a little bit less uneven now. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to another more obvious tan line. So let me go ahead and zoom out a little bit and then pan. It's this line on his wrist, so he must be wearing a wristband. Now he took it off. So let's go ahead and apply the same technique we learned. Let me go ahead and kinda, yeah, cross off what we've done so far. So on the same arm, zoom in on the wrist, remove the tan line, frequently selecting new sample areas to maintain a natural looking result. So let me go ahead and click here and then kind of like go over it, go in, and then you notice like different parts of his skin has different like coloration here. So I'm trying to kind of go in, same thing on this side. You notice I don't want to go too into this arm here. Yeah. So it just takes a lot of just fine tuning, kind of get it to where you want it to go. Here, if you zoom in a little bit more, there is a issue of being too close to the edge here where the background shows, and it's not going to work as well. Okay. So what I recommend to do here is use the clone tool, which it's a similar tool to healing, but clone really it just copies is the same exact um, texture for the reference area over it. So it's a little bit harder, and it's better to use for the edge. Healing it just takes the area around the healing reference point and applies it, so it's a softer um, retouching. Okay, so you might want to do a combination of like cloning and healing. There you go. Yeah. All right. So you can easily see the what you've done so far by just turning on and off your edit. So the tan does look less obvious now. It does look like we need to work on it, but that's something I'll let you focus on. So I might actually want to clone that area a little bit, just so I can, when I use the healing tool, you'll kind of go into, it'll add the variation more. Yeah, there we go. All right, there we go. All right, so by all means, you can spend more time on this, but let's go ahead and move on. And I want to show you the other things that we want to do. Okay, so let's talk about teeth whitening. So this is a nice little effect that you can do without actually having to go to a dentist. Okay. All right, so before we move on, once again, we want to add another layer. And let's go ahead and call this teeth. Now, we want to go ahead and kind of lower the contrast so that this, if you look at his teeth right now, it is slightly yellow. So it's, pan it, yeah. So when we adjust the contrast, it will make it more white. Okay. So you do that by going to colors, and you want to select the hue saturation tool. And then from there, we can decrease the saturation. And you can just type in the exact value of -76. And just hit tab and just hit OK. You notice, however, though, it is whiter, but everything else is also quote unquote whiter. Or it's just less color. The less obviously it's less saturated. So to apply the effect just on the teeth, we're going to use what they call a layer mask. By using a layer mask, it allows us to kind of fine tune where different colors are enhanced. Instead of right now, the colors right are enhanced throughout the whole image. The whole picture's desaturated, doesn't have the same pop as before, right? So we want it so that it only applies it to the teeth. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and add a layer mask. We're going to add what they call a black layer mask. That allows us to remove, to kind of reveal the edit that we want. So let me show you what that looks like. So let me go ahead and zoom back into the teeth. And the add layer mask is this theatrical mask icon next to the delete layer icon. Just going to click that and make sure black full transparency is selected, hit add. And you notice the color came back, okay? And you notice there's a black layer next to this layer, teeth layer. So make sure that is highlighted and not this one, okay? And now we want to go to our paintbrush. Our paintbrush is going to act like an eraser. And make sure the white is in the foreground. If it's like this, where the black is in the foreground, just click the switch arrow to switch it so that the white is in the front. Let's go ahead and adjust our brush size so that it's a little bit more targeted. So right now it's on 35, so let's just set it to 18 and make sure the hardness is at 50. So mine is already set to that. If yours is set to something else, like 25, you can just click on the blurry circle and then select 50. Oop, it went back to 51. Okay. Let me go and zoom in. And then it might be hard to see on your screen, but I am whitening his teeth right now. Okay. So it's good to let go of the brush on each teeth. So just in case if you messed up, you can always go back a teeth. Yeah, I'm removing the tartar. I think that's what the dental hygienist would call it. So it's a little bit more obvious on the side teeth. So you can kind of see that by clicking the hide and review layer. Yeah, it looks pretty good. So let me bring it back. And you could see it's even more obvious on the teeth to the side here. Yeah, there we go. You can see it there now. Um, so if you remember the episode on Friends when Ross got his teeth whitened for a date, um, so sometimes you don't want the teeth to be this white, but I don't think this is a really bad um, effect here, retouching, especially if you zoom out. Yeah, it looks good, right? Yeah, it looks natural. I think that's what I'm trying to say. Unlike Ross's teeth, it glows in the dark. You don't want that. So if you notice, if in the tip, you can adjust the opacity right here. Instead of 100, you can lower it so it's not as white. But for the purposes of this exercise, let's keep it as 100. So by all means, you can find the other teeth too, but I'm just going to stop here and move on. The other thing you can do too, in for blemishes and scars, if you go back to the blemish layer, you can also kind of like fix some I guess, blemishes on his face, like this red spot here or pimple. So once again, you just hit H to go to the healing tool. You might want to increase the brush size again. Hold the control key and then brush over it. Okay, so that was a pretty easy fix. By all means, you can fix that. I mean, you don't have to make his skin flawless. So it's all it's a personal taste. All right, so let's go ahead and move on and work on enhancing his eyes. Oops. There we go. Before we do that, let's kind of do some reorganizations of our layers here. So first we want to do is, before we move on to the eyes, let's create a group layer. So a group layer, if you don't remember, is this folder icon here with the plus icon. Now we have this layer group folder. Let's just drag everything into that folder. Okay, so they're all in there now. All right, let's go ahead and duplicate that layer by right-clicking on it and select duplicate layers from there. Now we have a copy. Now this copy is the one that we want to merge down. Okay, right-click on that and merge layer group, so that it all becomes one group now. And now we can just recall that eyes. Okay. Once again, the reason we do that is so that, right, we can always go back and redo certain part of the photo. Like let's say they want more blemishes removed, or they want the teeth to be less bright. Anyways, all right, so we got that done. Now we're gonna apply kind of like the same technique to the eyes like we did with the teeth, right? With the teeth, we adjusted the saturation of the image. And so we're gonna kind of adjust the lighting of the image to kind of help enhance the brightness of the eyes. Right? So to do that, we want to go to the colors menu. This time we want to go to curves. This allows us to kind of adjust the curve lighting to emphasize different effects. So the higher end will emphasize brightness. So you want to start in this grid, this upper right hand grid here. Kind of drag it up. You notice it got brighter. And the value I would like you guys to use is 183 for input and 218 for output. Okay, you notice it got considerably brighter. Now we want to kind of adjust the contrast, which is to make it a little bit darker. So to do that, um, kind of pick this bottom right-hand grid here and just grab the white line, drag it down a little bit, and then enter for the input 63, for the output 54. Okay, click OK. Now you notice just like the teeth layer, it kind of applied to the whole project, right? We don't want that. We want it just on the eyes. So once again, we're going to add a black layer mask. So make sure it's set to black full transparency, click add. And you notice the picture went back. The colors and brightness, the contrast and brightness went back. That's what we want. Now we want to just focus on the eyes. Once again, we want to use the paintbrush tool. Make sure the white is your foreground. You might want to adjust the brush size. So I'm gonna bring it down to like maybe 20. Yeah, that looks good. And then just brush around the eye. I'm gonna zoom in a little bit more. It's a little subtle right now, and that's really that's what we want, right? When we touch something, we don't want to make it so like, oh yeah, this is definitely photoshopped. We want to just retouching we're doing more about subtlety more than um, exaggerated effects. Now you can kind of see what we've done by click once again, just hide the layer and reveal the layer. And yeah, the eye got greener. So let's go ahead and move to the other eye. Let's go ahead and brush over it. So we are in a way kind of like erasing the black transparency layer by painting white. It's an interesting um, way of doing these retouching. So, and then once again, you can just hide it and reveal it. Yep. All right. So this is how you would do some basic, oops. Yeah. So it's subtle. That's what we want. And so this is how you would re-enhance the eye. So at this part, I want you guys to go ahead and export your project so I can see your edits. By all means, the things I'm really looking for is just maybe some, like the pimples on his nose and the cheek, the scars on his left arm, and then the tan line on his wrists, whitening of the teeth, and then enhance eyes. And when you do that, you get the full points for part one. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and export this and export it as a JPEG. So instead of a sample image, you can just retitle it um, the way I want you guys to do it, right? Which is in your first name, your last initial, project 4, image 1.jpg. You can hit enter, and then it's gonna have some settings here. Now the quality set might be different for you. Right now it's 93. I want to lower that to 75 because you'd be submitting at least 5 JPEGs. So to keep the size down, um, even though we're doing a 75% quality, it's still good enough so I can actually see your changes. Okay, and then hit export. All right, so we'll go ahead and continue to part 2, which is removing objects. So for part 2, we need to work on a second sample image, which is the picture of a wedding couple on the beach. So once again, I'm going to right click on that image, select open with, and select GIMP. Convert the RGB profile to GIMPs. And for this particular image, we're going to retouch it using more of the clone tool than the healing tool. So if you remember, for this image, it's all about details. So we started with healing first and then use a little bit of clone. For this particular image, for part 2, we'll be using a lot of cloning and then use healing to kind of do the finish blending of the color. So let me go and show you what I'm talking about. So I open that image there, and then let's go ahead and duplicate the layer, rename the layers. So bottom layer original, second layer sky. So what for this part 2, we're gonna break down the image into 3 parts: sky, water, beach. Okay? Just make sure when you start working on the sky that the sky layer is selected. All right. So we want to go to start with the clone tool and then hold the control key to find a reference point. So I'm gonna click here and then start painting over the groom here. And then you notice as I go further down, I kind of change my reference point. And avoid going over the horizon. We want to maintain that sharp line, and I'll show you how to do that. So let's go ahead and work on the bright side. You notice it's a little bit darker on the bright side, so I need to change my reference color here. It's a little too dark. So yeah, it's a little tricky when they're like right in the middle like that. Yeah. So that's when you want to use healing. So I did say here to start with 256, but by all means, you can always adjust the brush size to whatever area size that you're comfortable working with. So I was actually using 159. That worked pretty well actually. So I'm gonna hit H. Oops. Um, I was in Adobe there. Okay, so we did that. Now we want to go ahead and use the healing tool, and it kind of explains why you want to use healing tool. So hit H, and then that helps us blend the colors a little bit more. Start from this side. Oops. So you notice as we get closer, it does make it a little bit darker. So just make sure you paint downward as you get closer towards the horizon and just let go. Yeah. All right, let's go ahead and focus on the horizon now. So to maintain that nice sharp line on the horizon, we're going to use the rectangle tool. And then I'm just going to draw a rectangle box. And then you can always adjust it when you let it go. Bring it up a little bit more. Yeah, that looks good. All right, now we can go back to using our clone tool. And I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. Yeah, so adjust the brush size as necessary. So I'm going to make it to like maybe 150. Yeah, sure. And then brush over the horizon now. And you notice it doesn't go over the rectangle selector. Okay? Yeah, now we can use healing. Maybe I'll do like 125 for healing. Yeah, there we go. Now we can kind of touch it up a little bit more, add a little bit more variety. So that's a little bit tricky here. Yeah. Yeah, so you see what I'm talking about here. All right. By all means, this is something you can do a few more times. This is kind of make the color blend a little bit easier. So that's something I'll let you guys do. Let me go ahead and just move on to kind of show you what to do next. So now we just want to duplicate that layer and call it water. And yes, you do the same thing. You use the clone tool and then make sure the rectangle is no longer there. Yeah, Control Shift A, right? And then now you can start cloning over the groom here. And then once again, you want to avoid the horizon. Oh yeah. And then I might want to go a little bit lower on the horizon so that the water doesn't have that little lip like that there. So it's the same idea. Okay. And then once you're done with the water, and then there's a lot of different tips you can do, changing the hardness of your brush to make it softer, like hardness of 25 there. And then last but not least, once you've finished doing the editing in water, you want to go ahead and duplicate that layer, rename it that beach, and then once again, you do the same thing on the beach side. You want to go ahead and clone that. Now, obviously, I want the brush size to be bigger, so like 200. Let's make the hardness 50. Or it's um, I guess that's 50. Yeah, 200. Oh, that's a little big. 100. There we go. Create a reference spot and then just paint over the groom here. You notice it kind of duplicated that, I guess, kelp. So just be aware of like the place you select. Okay. So once you finish all that, I want you to go ahead and um, export the project. So once again, go to File, Export, name it your first name, your last initial, project 4 will be image 2, and make sure that your quality setting is set to 75. And if you don't want to like keep retyping the quality value, you can always click Save Settings, and then that way it should remember that you want it at 75. Then click Export, and then from there we'll be moving on to part 3, where we'll be focusing on changing colors. So for part 3, we'll go back to our original sample image. So let's go ahead and reopen that. Once again, you would need to convert it to the RGB to GIMPs. All right. So Before we do any changes to the color, let's, let's go ahead and create a duplicate of the original layer, the original image. Call it original once again. And then just call this new layer blue. So we're going to change the shirt to the color blue. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to use the hue saturation tool. And that can be located in colors. Let's look for the word hue saturation. It's something we used before. This time we're going to use it to change the color green. Okay. And one of the things you need to make sure is none of these other single colors are selected. So if you don't see a white dot on those, that's good. And if you do though, just click on master and that will deselect any of the individual colors. Now, going to hue, you want to adjust the slider so it's 106.5, or you can just type it in directly. Hit tab, and then hit OK. The shirt has changed to blue, but the guy's skin has changed to green. So he looks like Incredible Hulk now without all the muscles. So we want to go ahead and add a layer mask once again, right? Because that would allow us to apply the change to a specific area of the image, which is the shirt. So let's go ahead and apply a black layer mask. Click on the layer mask, make sure black is selected, hit add. The color has been restored. And now we want to use the paintbrush. Make sure that the foreground is set to white. See here. And then right now the size is a little small. So I'm going to change the brush size to be a little bit big, 400, right? So, and then just start clicking. And from there, start changing the color shirt to blue. Okay. Once again, as you get closer to the edge, obviously the way you would need to do is adjust the brush size so it doesn't change his skin to green, like you kind of see there. So you're just going to have to constantly change the paintbrush size as you get closer and closer to the skin here. Okay. So yeah, so this is a really neat trick. And what I'll be looking for is how well you converted his shirt to blue. Okay. And I guess if you make a mistake, let's say like right here, you can always flip it to uh, to black as a foreground, and then you can undo the mistake there, or you could just hit Control Z, right? That's the other way to do it. But yeah, using white as the foreground allows you to paint on the blue color on the shirt, while using the black allows you to restore it back to the original color. Okay. Once you finish converting the shirt to as much blue as you can, once again, go to um, File, Save As. Actually, I noticed it's been calling it as Save As. You should be Export As. So I'll definitely update that. So it's Control E, I believe. Yep. So it's Control E on your keyboard. Once again, when you export it, you want to call it your first name, project for um, image 3, and I'm going to load the save setting so that easily change it back to 75 if that's what you've done before. If you didn't, you would just have to manually type in 75. That helps keeps the file size down. Okay, I'm not going to do it right now. And there's a tip here about fine-tuning the color. You can always readjust the color by going back to, like some people say, this is really not blue. So you can make it more blue by, going back to the hue saturation tool and then just fine-tuning the different settings there. You can always lower the opacity. Um, and then for the black effect, you can go to multiply, like that. Okay. That actually looks like navy blue. Yeah. But I'm not looking for that for your project. I'm just looking for this particular blue, just to, in a way, to helps you kind of identify whether or not you've done it right. Right. So now we can also now move on to part 4, which is focus on teaching you how to change the sky of a picture. So now we're going to open the sample image 3 and sample image 4. This time we have another wedding couple, but they are on a hill. And then we're going to replace that hill. Let me go ahead and open that really quick. Not this hill, but I mean the sky with clouds to give it more texture than this white sky right now. So once again, I'm going to right click on that image, open it with GIMP. I'm going to go ahead and convert it to GIMP's RGB profile. Then go back to find the fourth image, cloud image, and you can also just open it through GIMP. Convert the RGB profile once again. All right, so we're going to go ahead and just click and drag the cloud image in the tab, hover over the first image that we just opened, and just drop it into the project here. Okay. And you notice the cloud covered up the couple there. So let me go ahead and rearrange my window better so I can see my drop layer. All right, so let's go ahead and do some renaming. Let me go ahead and check off what I've done. So, all right, so let's call that layer that we just dropped in there clouds. And then the layer down here, couple. Okay. And it makes sense that we're only seeing the cloud right now, right? Because it's the top layer. So one of the things we need to also notice too, let me go ahead and fit the image to window, is just be aware, and I also I made the cloud not visible so I can see the couple once again, is to be aware of where the sun is, right? So you don't see the sun at all really in this picture, but if you look at the shadow, the direction of shadow, since there's a shadow beneath this dress here, kind of infer that the sun is on the right, um, for the couple image. However, if we look at the cloud image, you can kind of see that the sun is on the right. So we need to flip this cloud picture so that the sun is also on the right instead of the left as is shown here. So we want to go to Layer, Transform, and then Flip horizontally. And it's as simple as that. Now that now the clouds is on the right. So now we can continue editing. Okay, let's go ahead and take that out. Well, first things first is you see this little black spot? It's not a black spot on the cloud. It's actually a dust speck on the camera. So I think, yeah, that's another dust speck on the camera too. So you want to go ahead and use the healing tool to kind of like remove that. So I'm going to make that 100, I think. Yeah. Pick a reference point and then remove that too. All right. So with those minor imperfections out of the way, we can kind of move on to actually start blending the sky with the couple picture. So what we want to do first is add a white layer mask. The reason why we're using a white one and not a black one is because we're actually removing the cloud from the other layer, right? You notice when we were using black mask, we were revealing the bottom layer, right? So we're not doing that here. So that's why we're going to do a white mask, white layer mask instead, okay? And you notice we have a white box there. The other thing that we need to do is more of it's more of a help for us as editors. It's kind of like, oh, make sure, oh, well, let me follow the directions. I'm moving a little bit ahead here. We need to select the gradient tool, so hit G. And when you're in your gradient tool, just make sure all these different settings here matches what you need, what is shown in this step here. that it needs to be FG to BG, which is correct. For the blend color space, it needs to be linear RGB. And then the linear needs to be set for the shape. Okay, so I'm good. If yours is any other value, you just have to click here. I don't think, I think for now it's set to that. This is that. Oh, this is where you change it. Yeah, right. So just click on that. Let me go back to my layer here. There we go. Here you just click the drop down arrow. It might be set to like perceptual RGB, but you want it linear. And the shape you want it to be linear as well. Okay. So just verify that all those settings are correct for your gradient. Now we're going to set the foreground color to black and the background color to white, which I've already done. So if yours was switched like this, because this is what you've been doing in the previous parts of this project, you might want to switch it back so it's black and white. And if there's any other color, make sure you click this small black and white box to set it back to that default color scheme. All right. Now we can set the opacity temporarily to 50. So this is the tool I was talking about. This helps us see what we're doing with the cloud. So now you can see the clouds on top of the couple. And then I'm going to fit image to window, which is Control Shift J, right? So you can kind of see that we're just going to use this top half, and then the bottom half will be covered up by the hill and the couple. But this will help us set the gradient, linear gradient scale. Okay. Let me go and zoom back in. All right. So now you want to just draw a straight line up as straight as you can. And a good reference point is this hill here because it's a higher peak. So, and then I'm going to start from the dip of right beneath this groom's shoulder here. So click and drag up. You notice as I'm doing that, oops, um, it's kind of removing the cloud layer from the hill. Okay, and then you notice what I'm looking for is right now you can see it's a little bit foggy, right? Like there's a mist going on over the hill. We don't want that. So I want to drag it up a little bit more. Okay. In fact, I might want to drag up further. So now I want to go ahead and just reset the opacity to 100. And now I can actually see, oh, okay, well, there's still more white covering the hill. So let me go ahead and pull that it up a little bit more. And you also notice it darkened the cloud, so you just have to balance it somehow. So I think right there, I think it's good. Yeah. And you notice there's still some white, but we'll clean that up. Okay. All right. All right. So let's go and zoom in. And to clean this up, we're gonna use the paintbrush. And just make sure our black is our foreground color because we're gonna erase this kind of a mist or whiteness over the hill here. And just make sure the hardness is softer, so it's about 25. And increase the brush size, so I'm gonna increase it. And then maybe a little higher than that, 200. Yeah, there we go. And then you notice it helps reveal the cloud, makes the grass greener. Okay, there we go. I'm not going to worry about that stock here. It's going to create a abnormality here. Okay, yeah, here we go. All right, and feel free to make the circle smaller so you can make the grass greener here over the couple, but I'll let you guys do that. I'm just going to move on. Now, there is an element for an original sky that I would like to incorporate in this retouch image is, let me go and show you what that is. It's the flock of birds. This is a nice little detail to kind of include in a new image. Um, so let me go ahead and show you how to do that. So I already turned off the cloud layer. And we need to select the original layer. And we're going to use the free select tool. So just hit F on your keyboard, zoom in on the bird, and just draw a lasso as close as you can around the birds without going over them. Okay. Your lasso doesn't have to look exactly like mine. Once again, when you see that circle, it means you can let it go so it completes the selection. So we're going to copy it and then paste it. So it's Control C and then Control V. Okay. And instead of having the layer be called couple copy, let's just rename it so it's birds. Okay. And then we want to drag it up so it's on the top layer. Okay, so let me go ahead and drag it up so it's on the top. Okay. All right, so deselect the layer. Well, before we do that, let's bring this back. Let's just reveal the cloud layer. And you notice, well, there's this awkward white around the birds. However, the easy way to blend it is to actually, right now the mode is on normal. We want to select darken only. So it's beneath addition. There it is. And then deselect the layer and Control Shift A, deselect the object, and then there we are. Nice clouds, pretty birds. You can also kind of like use a healing tool to kind of remove the sharp transition of the darker clouds to white. But I'll let you guys do that. Once again, once you're done, export it and export it just with the quality of 75%. Okay. So now we're on to part 5. This is your turn to apply your skills. So you can either choose a high quality photo that you've taken or that you have that you would like to edit, or you can use a free stock photo from websites like Pexels. Okay. So if you click on this link, you're gonna have to, I believe, hold Control, click it, and for me, already selected the pop-up says, "Are you sure you want to visit this website?" And I just click Allow, and then from here, find pictures that you find interesting that you would like to do edits. And I think this is a neat one. Yeah, because what I want you to do, if I go back to directions, is once you found your photo, you want to apply at least 2 of the techniques that you've learned, right? So it's changing colors, removing blemishes, removing objects, or changing the sky, right? So this one, if I bring this up again, I was thinking I can change the sky so it's sunset, and now I can change the colors of the chair to a different color. So that's 2 edits I think I can think of right away. Now, if you want something else, you can do a topic search. So you can do faces or National Dog Day. So you can change colors of the cars, like this Toyota. You can change it so it's green, and then you can remove the mountain and then set it so it's the background is this skyscrapers. Okay, so I'll let your imagination, um, do your thing, and I'm looking forward to see what your unique photo retouching looks like. When you're done, make sure just follow the directions here. Yeah, the one thing I want to emphasize is make sure each technique is performed on its own layer, like what you've been doing in the practice, right? So for clouds, it's on its layer, the birds are on the clouds, and then you have the original layer. That way I can kind of figure out what kind of um, 2 techniques you apply to your photo. When you save and submit, I do want your GIMP file of your fifth image. I don't want the GIMP file of the practice images. I do want to see your exports though. So you want to submit the GIMP file of your 5th image, and then also the export of your completed enhancements of the photo you picked out. Okay? So thank you for watching and good luck on project 4.